Hey friends, my name is Jake. Welcome to Canadian Cutting Edge, and this video is going to be especially of interest to Canadians, but the rest of you are going to find some interesting things as well. One of the things I want to talk about is this knife, the KU214 that I reviewed between Christmas and New Year, and I couldn't get it apart to show you the insides, at least not properly in that video, and I figured out why, and I'll show you a bit about that. One of the other things I want specifically for Canadians is, do any of you know of a knife modder, maybe a couple of them, that will modify knives for other people in Canada, a Canadian knife modder? Because sometimes we don't want to, as Canadians, send knives across the border because we might have problems getting it back into Canada. And that brings me to the third issue. It's hard to get certain knives into Canada because of Canada's law about centrifugal knives. They say that knives that can be opened by doing a flick of the hand and having the blade come out, they're calling those centrifugal knives in Canadian law, when really it's not centrifugal force that does anything here. That's inertia. Inertia of the knife moving this way, suddenly stopping, which means the blade wants to keep moving that way, but it can't keep moving that way because there's a pivot pin which forces it to rotate. So centrifugal force would mean that it'd be pulling it outward. And I got this one because they didn't inspect the package, and most packages don't get inspected at the border. Occasionally they do. By the way, just so it's clear, they use X-ray technology with artificial intelligence, so they're scanning packages, and if the artificial intelligence through the camera through the X-ray camera, sees what it thinks is a folding knife, then the package might get flagged for human inspection. A human looks at the package and they decide if they're going to open it or not, and it goes down that process. So if the package never gets flagged by the computer, there's a very low chance that a human's going to stop the package. But in any case, this never got inspected, but it would be called a centrifugal knife if it got inspected, because they've got humans that know how to do that too. So they'll test a knife and they'll have their best person in the shop that knows how to do this test it. And if it can do that, they call it inadmissible. So I've heard some people say when they buy knives, they're going to ask the people that are selling them to really crank down on that pivot pin, tighten it up like crazy so that the blade won't move. Is that a good idea? I say no. That's a bad idea. It's an okay idea on knives that have washers, but knives that have ball bearings especially, it's not a good idea. And I'll tell you why. So those three things we're going to cover. The first one I already did. Well, the second one I already did. If you know of any modders, leave their information down below. Even links. Links would be a really good idea. If you leave a link in the comments, it does not automatically get posted, but it gets put into a section where I need to look at it and manually approve that comment. So, modders, is it okay to tighten down knives? I'll cover that. But first, let's get over to the tabletop and find out how to take this thing apart. Keep watching. So yeah, if I would have just taken a little bit more time to look down in here, it's easy to see, at least with the naked eye, you can't see it with the camera, that this screw does not go all the way through. That this back spacer, G10, it just doesn't line up for this to go all the way through. So the knife gets held together inside by a screw other than that. And I just didn't notice that. So here, this is why I didn't take this handle scale all the way off. It felt very tight. And these holes, were sort of stuck on the pins that stick out just a little bit there. Let me put that onto the side here so it's safer. So yeah, I didn't try hard enough to take the G10 off. If I would have noticed there's a screw right here. So there's a hidden screw back here that's recessed underneath that little hole right there. So, when it's sitting on here, you think the screws out, and you think, well, look at that. That must be going through right there, but it can't. It doesn't go all the way through. I should have seen that on the inside already, but I guess I didn't take a close enough look. So if you've got one of these or want to get one of these, now you know how to take it apart. The last thing that we're going to cover now is what do we do if we thinking about a knife like this tightening down the pivot like crazy. It's a bad idea because the liners on knives are quite a bit softer steel than both the blade and especially softer than ball bearings, especially if those ball bearings are ceramic. Ceramic ball bearings are the hardest thing you're going to find on any pocket knife. But the steel ball bearings are very hard as well. They're hardened like the blades are hardened. So what happens if you tighten it down too much, the ball bearings are going to squeeze and deform the liners. Now, you've probably seen it sometimes when you take a knife apart, you see a ring. You can just barely see a ring around this one. There you go, the light's on it, just right at the pivot, you see a ring around there. But on this one, this is a FH91, I think, from, yeah, it is, the FH91 from Ganzo. And I didn't think I tightened down the pivot too much. It might have got tightened too much at the factory or something once or something, or not. So this isn't even a knife that's been cranked down like crazy. Sometimes on liners you see that line where the pivot balls, where the ball bearings run, some places it's really deep sometimes and not so deep on another spot. But what happens if you tighten down too much? You can just barely see it. I saw it with the naked eye. I don't know if you can see it here. There you go. See those spots on this edge right here? I can see 4 little divots. Here's some close-up shots of it. Those divots are very minor right now, but what happens with the ball bearings? Do I have my ball bearings here? There we go. So the ball bearings are on there and they get squished down. So what happens when you try to turn it now? Even after you loosen it up a little bit, as it's turning around, it's bumping through those holes. Bump, bump, bump. It's like a car going through a pothole. So the ball bearing is now the car, and it's driving along, and it's going boop, 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 and it's bumping through the potholes. So I don't know if you've ever had a knife, and you're going like this, and you've cleaned it and everything, but it still feels a little rough. That's what could be the problem. If the knife had been tightened at the pivot too much, and now you've got those dents, there's nothing you can do to fix that. It's too late now. You can't put a washer in there because the washers would have to be so terribly thin to be able to stay in there that they would be soft. You know, they would deform as well. If you put in thicker washers, well, if you make it thicker, now there's not enough room because everything else would have to spread apart. So if you tighten down the pivots too much, you're asking for a knife to be basically defective when you get it. Unfortunately, that's just the way it goes. I wouldn't take that risk on my knives. So there you go. That's this video. It's a whole lot longer than I thought it would be, but thank you for watching it. Thank you for liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. And remember, friends, always cut towards your chum, not your bleeding thumb. Oh, it's not bleeding because I didn't cut towards it. Bye for now.